Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Steve.
How you doing,
It's
man?
Thursday, Thirsty Thursday here on
Thirsty
Open
Thursday.
Sourced Workplace Daily.
There you go. There you go, man. And
Hashtag
before we
OSW
get going,
Live.
I love it. I love it. Before we get going, our executive producer tells us off every day for telling people not to subscribe and like the video right off the bat. So to get ourselves out of jail, let's just tell people, please do it so we don't get in trouble.
Subscribe and like.
Yeah. And don't feel you have to listen to us all. Just subscribe, like it, and be on your way.
That's right. Don't
But
even
anyway,
listen.
you don't have to listen.
Of
Just
course they
just
want to
just help us
listen.
out. Of course
Join the
they do.
chat.
Of
We
course
need
they
you in
do.
the chat. Let's make sure we
Yeah,
have
we do.
this a two-way conversation or a three-way, four-way, whatever it is.
Whatever
Bring
it
the
turns out to
party.
be.
So
Yep.
Thirsty Thursday, I don't know where that came from, other than that this afternoon I have my very first virtual happy hour scheduled, Steve,
Okay. Nice.
with my
Is it
friends
a is it
from.
a fancy wear a hat, wear a shirt, or is it just bring your beverages?
I haven't heard. I'm waiting for the instructions and the Zoom link or whatever tool they're going to use to get us all together. But the capital chapter of IFMA, my local community
Mm.
here, is getting together for the first time. I saw them. They did something the other day with an FM roundtable discussion, which I couldn't be a part of because of so many conflicts. But I saw some screenshots of it, and literally the screen was filled with everybody's head. So I'm not sure how it
That's
works when you
cool.
get a huge group of people together. So it'll be fun.
No,
Have you done one yet? Has anybody
Yeah,
invited you to
yeah,
a
yeah,
drink
yeah.
online?
Yeah, no, we do one each week for the team and NASDAQ, so that's pretty cool. But yesterday I was on one 50 people. So basically you get 25 images on one screen and you can pull to the second screen, and you just keep going if there's more people on. So it works out well.
How do you
Just go
manage
ahead.
that? How do you manage that? How do you decide who's going to speak at any given moment?
It's take it as you, Mike. Who's going to get a word in whenever you're talking, right? So there's always
It's
somebody who
chaos.
wants to
The
consume
loudest
the
voice
air,
in the room.
But
Yeah. All right. I
there
get
you
it.
go, there you go. But Zoom, talking about Zoom, I don't know whether you saw the headlines the other day. Zoom is being sued for allegedly sharing user data with Facebook. The CEO did come out and did say
Really?
that they didn't realize that iOS, it's only on iOS platforms that they actually share data.
Hmm.
I find that interesting. They said they've adjusted and fixed it as of March 25th, 26th, something like that. What's your view on that? Because you use it, I use it, companies use it.
Boy,
It's pretty
I
tough,
don't
right?
know. I mean, if it's just like a default setting in the iOS programming, I set, click, 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 okay, agree, agree,
Yeah,
agree.
yeah,
You even think
yeah.
about those things. It's just one of those things where we need some level of corporate transparency and responsibility. And I'm not sure what the danger is, other than we talked about yesterday, or was it 2 days ago? These recordings getting out, maybe somebody doing something embarrassing or saying something that's private. That would be pretty disturbing. But boy, I'm one of these guys who just, there's so much of me out there, more than most people want, that I just can't worry about such things. Share away, everybody. Facebook,
Yeah.
Zoom,
Uh, No,
spread,
I'm doing the
spread the
same.
word.
I'm doing the same. Like it's I use them for everything with open source. So I have no issue. I'm not too concerned. Apparently, it's been used for targeted advertising. So I mean, I'm not too sure how that sort of fits. But anyway,
Yeah.
I just find it
Oh,
interesting.
well,
It's sort of
somebody's
no
making money
matter
somewhere.
someone's making money somewhere, but I mean that's fine. But I also came across a term when I was reading up on this that I've never heard before.
Okay.
Zoom booming. Have you heard that before? Zoom
No,
booming?
no. What were
Apparently,
they referring to?
it's where hackers actually break into Zoom videos and throw content up that perhaps people don't want to see.
Oh
I'll leave it at
my.
that.
Oh
Yeah,
my.
so there you go. There's there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, am I right? It's just
Do
who
people
knew
have
that was a
nothing better
thing?
to do? I guess at this point they have lots of time on their hands, and
Yeah.
there's always someone with a evil intent out there. But it's crazy. Well, I wanted to ask you about your review of the UK this morning. Did you do your normal early morning catch up with your friends across
You
the
know,
pond?
I did, but I didn't actually look at the UK stuff this morning. It's interesting. I got sidetracked with other things like just reviewing content and so on and so forth. I did look at the US stuff, watched the news, watched an interview Andrew Como with Sanjay Gupta, who is I know who you
Oh,
watch.
I love those guys.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, no, no, I know you do. I know you do. And Andrew Cuomo's, he's got a COVID ID, so or COVID-19. So he
Yeah.
is, living in his basement and he's still broadcasting on CNN. So he was chatting
From
with
well,
Sanjay
we're losing
Gupta
you, Steve.
yesterday.
Okay,
Oh,
you're
sorry.
back.
Yeah. So okay, cool. Yeah. So Andrew Como was in conversation with Sanjay Gupta on his CNN show. So although he's in his basement, he's still broadcasting. What was interesting was some of the questions that Andrew Como was asking him, and some of the responses that Sanjay Gupta, who is a very recognized public health figure, and
Yeah.
Andrew was asking him, what sort of advice and guidance would you give me, given that I've got this? What would you do? There's a lot of protocols that are being issued out there. There's a lot of things that we can take or being advised to take. Is there anything you would advise? And he says, no, you just have to see it out. Just keep
Hmm.
yourself hydrated. And this is like one friend talking to another friend, so
Yeah.
it's
Who's an
interesting.
expert?
There's a lot of
And
studies.
you're talking
Yeah,
about
there's a
Chris,
lot of
by the way,
studies.
Chris Cuomo. You're talking about Andrew's brother, Chris,
Oh, Chris,
who's the CNN
I'm sorry.
host.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. Thank you,
That's all
thank
right.
you,
Andrew's your governor.
thank you
Chris
for
is
correcting
your
me.
CNN host. There are a lot of Cuomos out there, but I get the point and the fact that, yeah,
There
if,
you go. Yeah.
I'm sure one of us at some point, do you know anybody personally who's got COVID-19? I mean, it's going to happen, right?
Um,
Eventually, family, friends. And it's
yeah,
just,
I do know.
thankfully, most
Yeah,
people still, and this is the optimistic view you don't hear on the news, is that the vast, vast majority of folks will have mild symptoms and get over it. But they certainly on the news are highlighting the seriousness of what it can be when they don't know, who, they know that older folks with underlying conditions are certainly the majority of the serious cases, but there's these kind of quirky. I heard Dr. Fauci yesterday, we're talking to Sanjay Gupta, said that there's this kind of a weird thing they just don't know yet, is that some young people that don't seem to be having any particular vulnerability turn for the worst and just go on a ventilator and some die. It's frightening in that regard. There's some small percentage that happens to, but there's
yeah,
always that kind of small percentage of young people who die tragically from other things that we don't even know about. And I won't get too personal here, but there are people in my life that have passed suddenly with no apparent problems on the surface, but you find out later they did have an underlying condition, or maybe
yeah,
not. Sometimes life is just fragile, and we have to accept that. But um, it's interesting to hear that a doctor would tell his friend that there's just, you ride it out. You do the things you would do if you got the flu or a cold, and you stay well rested and hydrated, and hope and pray for the best. So I don't spend much time worrying about myself personally. I know you don't, Steve. I worry about the broader situation. I also try to continue to let the experts deal with the strategies related to the society and public health. But when it comes to workplace, um, I'm fascinated to see. That's why I asked about the UK. There's some articles coming out of the UK, some opinions. Our friend Neil Usher is
yeah,
expert on workplace, great author, you know, great punk rocker, I'll call him.
yeah.
He's
He
putting
is.
out
He is.
great articles, content. He's a very active on social media. He put an article out today. I asked, you should check out. Of course, tying it to a music reference, making plans for Nigel on returning to the office. So little
Yeah.
XTC shout out there, right? Remember that song? We're always making plans for Nigel.
This is
Remember that song?
so we're a week in, and finally we get a song from
Oh,
DJ
we needed
Mike.
Neil to
Good.
inspire me.
There we go.
So
I
the
and I
article,
did
though,
see
has some
I
real
did see his
substance to
post.
it.
Have you read it? Okay.
Oh, did you read
Okay.
it? Did you read it?
No, no, no. I haven't read it yet. I did see it just before we came on, but I haven't actually
Mm.
read it. So you've read it?
I just read it right before we got on there, so I wanted to chat about it with you. But this idea that he's talking about stuff that I'm thinking about, that what does it look like coming back to the workplace? What's going to be required of workplace leaders, FM leaders, corporate real estate executives? There's decisions around space and how much space. We've been in this trend, and you could speak to this as your profession. Um, Densification has been the trend over a long time now, trying to get as much out of as little real estate footprint as possible. And we've created these great strategies around agile and activity-based working, just shared spaces and move around. And with the new normal and the heightened awareness of viruses and public health, are people going to want to share a keyboard and a mouse and a workstation? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, it is a big thing, and it was the first thing I thought about. On open source workplace, I do a lot of articles on hot desking, and the first thing that
Yep.
went to does this kill that structure? Does that kill the idea of it? Because you and I may have a different opinion about following up and using equipment that other people have used. Now, obviously, there's ways to mitigate that, right? So deep cleaning and cleaning and making it. Everyone take care of themselves, their social responsibility to colleagues to actually clean everything once you finish up. So I think we'll be fine. As human race, we quickly forget, which is good and bad, right, for all our sakes. But from the perspective of, will I do I think that will still continue? I think it will. I wouldn't be surprised if, given this um, incident, a lot of organizations won't start to look at that idea, given, well, actually, people can work from home, people can be productive. Who actually
Yep.
needs to go back to the office, right? What sort of conversations leads on from that? So it will be interesting to see how that does evolve, and will there be further densification, if you want, or reduction in actually the portfolio square footage that organizations take on going forward. So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes. And I think the longer this goes on, and the longer the experiment goes on, um, we'll see how people evaluate those outcomes. But it's going to be fascinating.
And how organizations do that was Neil's point is, and again, read the article. He is much brighter than I am, and he expresses himself so well when it comes to these principles and concepts. But the idea basically being this tug of war between organizations and individuals. He did mention the fact that you said we're creatures of habit. We'll go back to some normalcy at some point and fall back into former habits. It's probably certainly to be the case. But what changes? Does the organization, now that we've had this work from home experience, just do some leaders who were resistant to that in the past realize that, hey, this is good for some people at some times, let's continue it? There's also going to be the pressures again from the corporate real estate side of, we just spent X weeks or months with empty offices paying rent, huge economic impact there. Do we want to then try to minimize our real estate costs in further, while the pressure from the individuals may be, we need more space, we need to separate, we need to find ways to feel comfortable in our offices? So he goes into all
Hmm.
that and other ideas without trying to say he's going to predict the future. He just has some good understanding of people and this history of the the people proclaiming the death of the office for so long. It's been something he's been annoyed by for many years. So I love Neil and others over in the UK sharing their opinions in sometimes funny but often pretty forthright ways, not afraid
Yeah.
to express those opinions, where I feel here in the US we're a little more reserved about it. But this unprecedented situation may bring out a lot of opinions once we get back into some type of normalcy post pandemic.
Yeah. No, and I know Neil well. We actually have a summary of his Elemental Workplace on the website, and Alec has narrated it, so you can listen to it in a
Excellent.
podcast format. So yeah, so very familiar with Neil and his
Do that.
work, and the way he looks and the way he, to your point, articulates his ideas to allow us to sort of see other ways to looking at things. But
Love
yeah,
his
so.
style.
Yeah. So your live stream yesterday, how'd that go? We mentioned it briefly yesterday. Did it go
Yeah.
well?
Thank you for asking. Yeah. Workplace Innovator Interactive, folks. Wednesdays at noon Eastern time for iOffice. We had a great panel, a couple of folks from the health and well-being side of the aisle, Rex Miller and Carrie Weckelo, two book authors. And it was my co-host Madison and I had a conversation with the audience. We had a number of people online interacting with us, and it was really about that well-being piece of this, the anxiety, the fear, the how you doing personally. And I always ask you how you're doing through this situation that's so unusual. And Rex's position and his research for years now has been about the fact that stress in the workplace has been a real thing for a long time, even under normal conditions, and that there's a huge negative implication of our well-being and our physical being and our mental um, health is tied to stress and anxiety, and that we're creatures of habit. He actually alluded to that, that we have less stress when we're in some type of a habitual state where we're doing things that are just autopilot. We don't have to think about them. So his Healthy Workplace Nudge book that he put out a couple years ago was all about just giving a little nudge towards something healthier that doesn't require a lot of effort. If you try to go into some program that's going to 30, 60, 90-day program to eat healthier and be more active, people get stressed out and they fail. But if you give them a little nudge one direction or another, and you could do this during the workday in the workplace, it's something that people can adapt to quickly, and then it becomes a new habit. So I love that perspective and his expertise. And then Carrie's was really focused. She's all about the culture side of this. Culture Infusion is the name of her book, and she
Mm.
really speaks to this idea of corporate cultures. And here we are being tested, right? Everybody who was resistant to work at home policies or not trusting their employees to get the work done, potentially they're forced to now. And what do you do with that? Do you still try to look over people's shoulder and see what they're doing while they're in a remote location, or do you trust them to get their work done and do it under the time schedule and the circumstances, because everybody's got these additional responsibilities being juggled, family and other things. So it was a great hour-long conversation, and of course, we did give recommendations at the end. Every week, we give what we call escape from reality recommendations: music, movies, TV, things that you can turn your brain off with. And I mentioned, as I did yesterday or the other day with you, old movies that we could just kind of doze in and out of and
Yeah,
not have to think about,
yeah,
like The
yeah.
Firm, the John Grisham movies. I got to get the Jason Bourne movies this weekend coming up. I just any
Oh,
Jason
yeah,
Bourne
yeah, yeah,
movie I've seen, a dozen
yeah.
times or more. I could just kind of watch those at any moment and just enjoy them. So it was great. Thanks for asking.
Good, 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 good. And, going back to the whole looking over the shoulder and monitoring, and people are a little concerned about the fact that people work from home. Maybe a manager doesn't have that visibility. Maybe an employee is concerned that the supervisor is watching over their shoulders. But we have to sort of go back in the real world when we're back at the office. Our managers and stand look over us every day, right? And we don't look. Managers doesn't look over an employee, and employee isn't being looked over. So it's like we have to sort of go back to some of our traits and understand that actually we're not being as looked on or being managed, as meticulously as one may perceive. But I totally understand the concerns that individuals and managers may have. But I think we have to sort of refresh our reality sometimes.
Yeah, that's a culture question, right? That's what I told
Yeah.
Carrie, and I asked her to talk about it. It's something that when she talks about it being a culture infusion, if you want to get a culture that
Mm.
was very, you know, top down and I don't want to say dictatorial, but you know what I mean, kind of directive, where the managers were always kind of micromanaging their employees, and trying to
Yeah.
shift that away to a more trusting environment where people can be empowered to do their best work and be their best selves, which is I think what we all would want to work with, that type of environment. It's something that takes a long time. You have to stick with it for a long time. And Rex said something interesting to me. I want to hear what your thoughts on this. He said that, this type of situation reveals that some managers just aren't very good managers. 80% of people that are in a management position, statistically, they say that those folks aren't really wired for management of people, and they're not doing a job that is in their, wheelhouse. It's not their strength. So is that something you've experienced in your career, that, and not to speak to your current situation at all, but does that ring true for you? I haven't been a part of many organizations. I usually been more of an independent guy, more of an entrepreneurial guy. But in my limited experience, I could see that potentially being true, because we all have our strengths and weaknesses, and sometimes we're thrust into a position of, I know I am, when I'm put in a position of, hey, manage so many people and get them, delegate to them and give them things to do. It's certainly not my default. It's not my natural ability. It's something that's learned, certainly can be learned, but this is revealing, this situation, this forced situation is revealing our strengths and weaknesses pretty apparently.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and you're talking, and my brain's going through everything, and I'm trying to like, damn, how do I get myself out of this one? So thanks, but I'm
I'm not
playing
trying
with
to
you.
put
I'm
you on the
playing with
spot,
you.
but
No, no, no,
trying to
not
get
at
put on the
all.
spot.
No, no, and I'm happy to sort of think it through with you. But just keep in mind, these are my thoughts processing the question. While people may think we prepare what we're going to talk about, we never do, and
No,
this
it's
is where it goes. So I mean, so I'll take it from two distinct ways. One is, okay, my day job at Nasdaq and an open source workplace. And what I've found is, no matter in each situation, whenever people are remote, you have to communicate more. You have to be really clear. You have to encourage people more often. But
yeah,
communication regularly is the most important thing, whether it's through face to face, whether it's through email, through messaging, whatever it is. Whenever you don't see people face to face, because people get reassured, uh, fear is eliminated through seeing people face to face, right?
right,
You people, individual, we all have fear, no matter how well we hide it, or how badly we show it. There is always concern,
right,
there is always fear within us. That can be eliminated by just seeing your manager, your subordinate, whatever it is, by seeing their face. And that facial interaction can eliminate a lot of stress. Where in these situations where you don't get to see that interaction, communication is the key thing that one has to do to eliminate and keep people at ease. Um, I am okay at communicating. I say okay just simply because, I don't do it as often as I probably should. Um,
yeah.
yeah, I've got ways to improve, but, it's a great question, and yeah, I'm trying to do my best to give it as clear as answer as I can without tripping myself up, so to speak.
Well, again, we are careful not
Yeah,
to,
of course.
you know, again, I'm not trying to offend anybody or hurt anybody's feelings. I think
I know.
I listen. I'm the first one to point out my frailties, my imperfections, my limitations when it comes to these things. So I know my weaknesses, and I often joke about them to my team, because now I have a team, marketing department I'm a part of at iOffice, which are wonderful people. And we got together, and we're going to miss this. I hope we get back to it soon. We did a in-person team meeting not too long before the shutdown and the lockdown, I should say. And one of the things we did was we each took a personality test and compared notes as to who's got what kind of personality, what our strengths and weaknesses are. And there were a number of new members on the team, and I was just like, listen, I am aware of my foibles here, and please do not take. I know I've been known to say things, and I'm trying to be funny. I'm always trying to make somebody laugh or be sarcastic, and a lot of times people process that as criticism or negativity when I'm kind of trying to do it with a deadpan face or trying to think I'm funny and I'm not. And I always say, listen, I apologize in advance for things I may say or do that come across wrong when you don't know me, you don't know my personality. So I think the more we can just get cut past a lot of the facade, and that's been my kind of thing for a long time, is I really don't like it when people, and again, we all do it. We put on a persona or a facade, and I'm trying to get that authentic stuff going with the content we produce. It's hard because
Yep,
in the
yep.
beginning of my podcast, it was like you felt like you needed to put on a character, a voice, DJ Mike P. And it's kind of like when I joke about DJ Mike P, it's this kind of character that I was playing
Right.
that is I'm poking fun at myself. I don't really think of myself as DJ Mike P. It's funny that I've over the last few years of doing podcasting and these types of broadcasts, I'm still probably not the same guy you'd see, because there's just something about adrenaline rush that gets on when the camera gets on you
Yeah,
get kind of
yeah.
hyped up. But there are times where I could just be, Steve. That's what I was hoping for this to be. You and I just chatting and, hey, how you doing? That kind of thing. So, how you doing?
Yeah, yeah.
That kind of thing.
No,
How
I'm
are
good.
you
Yeah, yeah,
today,
no, no,
Steve?
I hear you. And trust me, whenever you talk about, yourself, about, you just want to say one-liner sarcastic remarks, trust me, anyone who knows me knows exactly that's just who I am, right? There's no ill intent from it. However, at times, obviously, people can take it, to be that way, but it's never where it comes from.
Well, it's only
But
because we don't understand half of what you're saying because of that accent.
oh, I
So
know that. I know that. I
that's
know
probably
that.
why we
And
got
and
just kind of look at you funny.
well, I certainly get a lot of those looks as well. Make no
Yeah.
mistake. Yeah, yeah. There was a question I was going to ask of what you were going through there, but it's just gone. Often, if I don't get it out, it just disappears on me. So,
Well, did you did
but
you uh did you have a chance to check out any of those HOK articles
I
about
did
workplace
actually.
and
Yeah, yeah.
what might
No,
be
I did. I
happening?
did. I did. Yeah, no, I did go through it, and it's good. It's really good content. It's really interesting. I think. it's when we think about it's a lot of it is, obviously what are the surfaces you're touching? So how do you protect the surfaces? How do you ensure employees, a lot more dispensers and cleaning products around? How do you adjust different zones to allow people to move more freely through the office without actually having to open doors and things like that? So
Yep.
a lot of really good stuff, and I'm actually going to be talking to a landlord shortly to do an interview for Open Source Workplace. And part of me is like, so how are you as a landlord going to approach this going forward? What sort of requests will tenants make of you to ensure that their employees feel protected? So, and many other things. So it's going to be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, what do you think? I mean, I think kind of again the parallels post 9/11 security at airports, security at
Mhm.
office buildings were ramped up to, you know, help prevent the possibility of a terror incident. How do we ramp up? How do we use technology? I guess would be the more pointed question to help visitor management and just employee, you know, management, sanitizing spaces, or screening people in a way that, you have a fever today. I imagine that's going to be something that people will be thinking
Yeah,
about.
no, I totally agree, and there may be, thermometers where people's temperature is checked. I think organizations are probably gonna be a little stricter with who comes to the office when you don't come to the office. That may be a little more enforced, on employees, while a lot of, and companies encourage that today, whether that then continues or is reaffirmed in a more stringent way, if that's if I don't wanna say it's sort of, enforcing people, but they may. But I do think technology will be a key thing that is used. One of the things I was looking at this morning, we didn't get to the UK news, is looking at, so we talk about innovation, right? So
Yeah.
how does this environment today create innovation? And there's a lot of organizations out there and small companies who are creating apps and products that will actually help solve some of these problems. So
Really?
Carnegie Mellon, I just have them noted down here, is Carnegie Mellon have they're working on an app where just through your voice, they're going to be able to detect whether or not you are COVID-19. And you go, how is that possible? Well, there are other things that they've used for other types of medical ailments. And so therefore they're able to change the algorithm to address some of this,
Wow.
which is really interesting.
It
I was
is.
reading another app called Hamagen, which is a company based. It's Hamagen, a company launched in Israel, where you're able to track based on your cell phone and Wi-Fi where you've been and who other people who may have contact or contract got COVID-19,
Yeah.
uh, if you have been in close proximity to those people in time gone past. So this is giving people a real-time feed of their issues, and you can see that when everyone goes back to work, technology like that being deployed to help employees, individuals, everyone, the nation, society as a whole feel more comfortable about who they're in contact with.
Well, I
But
can
yeah,
see that
so I
happening
think,
in Israel and other parts of the world, but I think that level of, again, it's going to be what's the value proposition versus the invasion of my privacy. Am I? And that's what's kind of a little bit scary. If you're again, we should do that second live stream about conspiracy theories. But
mm,
I've heard rumblings of the conspiracists who say this is all a big, ploy to get the government to take over our lives, that kind of thing. The whole, people who buy into that philosophy that everybody's trying to become, in control of everything. And you could see
mm,
that when people are in a state of fear. I saw this, after 9/11. I see it in moments of fear. People are willing to give up their privacy, give up their rights, so to speak. And that's what allows, certain parts of the world to dominate. But send me those articles. I think that the apps, the technology, the the testing, I read that there's Abbott Labs has got some 5-minute COVID-19
mm,
test. If we could have those at the door, before walking into a restaurant. I think I mentioned this before.
yeah.
I would be comfortable, even before a vaccine is available, to go back to work, to go back to certain public settings, if we knew that everybody who walked in the door was tested, and we all had tested negative for that, for the virus in
Yeah,
any
yeah.
future situation. So I think those technologies, those innovations are going to be the things we need to look at to bring back some comfort for people to get back to a normal public life, and that's what it's going to take.
Yeah, and there's one that I was reading as well that's a big one for me. I'm a big face toucher. I touch my face all the time, but
Oh yeah,
there's a band that actually as your hand moves to your face, it just dings to stop you, which is crazy, but it's really good, right? You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
So it's all this new
Habit
technology. So
changes. It's not easy.
yeah, no, so I just remembered that what you mentioned 9/11, and that's sort of where my what's a trigger for me. So, it's as I think about a real estate portfolio, as I think about how construction and everything changed in New York at that time, is there lessons we can learn from the post 9/11 era, be it the next, 6, 12, 18, 24 months that we could then apply to this current situation? Is there trends that we saw then that could help us learn and help real estate portfolio managers, project managers, construction? Is there things that we can learn from that time that we can maybe apply today? And I don't know. It was something that I heard. It was actually on Aaron Fox, who is a legal company, but they were talking about how does this impact construction whenever the lights go back on? What do construction workers first go on? Will they be required to go and work on hospitals? Because on post this, then maybe perhaps be it a state, be it a city, be it the government, want to actually build more hospitals to sort of, help with these things going forward. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But so I just
Never ending
that's what
supply of things to
that's what
talk
skipped
about,
my
Steve.
head.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, I
let's
know, man. I
make
know.
a note, bring it up tomorrow because instead of
Yeah.
winging it and talking about things we weren't planning to, let's have an agenda to some degree. But this has been great. Again, getting my day off on the right foot, getting my brain started and thinking about things is something that I appreciate. And thanks for having me on Open Source Workplace.
No, thank you, Mike. Take care, mate. See you
See ya.
tomorrow.
Bye bye.
Cheers.